Litigation is a scam. So I've been practicing. Is this part of the? Because I'm.
Are we rolling?
We are.
Yeah,
Okay.
kid. Welcome. No, no, this is my time. I do the intro.
Okay. Oh,
Then
sorry.
I bring you in.
All right. Sorry.
Yeah, kid. Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Handsome Homebuyer podcast. I'm your host, Charles Weinraub, a.k.a. the Handsome Homebuyer, formerly Captain Permit, but we still love him. Do you know their phone number?
I do actually.
No, you don't.
Not by heart.
Oh.
My phone knows it.
Really?
I don't know.
516-513-8838. Obviously, if you have a house that smells like cat pee, dated from the 1960s, or if you just want to get the hell out of New York like everybody else. And you know what? Starting to understand. Not so much understanding the whole Android over iPhone thing, but I'm understanding why people are wanting to leave New York. Because I got to tell you, it gets harder every day, dude. Every day. Property condition disclosure. You know about that shit?
I did. It's a big thing that's coming out these days. Yep.
It's a nightmare.
Yep.
Anyway, if you want to get out of New York before you leave,
Sell you the house.
yeah, sell me your house. 516-777. Sold. All right, so let's get into it.
Let's do it, man.
Dude, we're going to talk about all things legal. We're going to talk about how sometimes you have to have like a 7-year romance in order to first do business, because you and I had like a 7-year romance in order to first do business.
Yeah, we
We'll
did.
talk about real estate funds, which is actually a very cool thing, right? And all the other things you do on the legal side.
Mm-hmm.
So, high level, 30 seconds. Introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you are.
Well, thank you very much for having me. A handsome homebuyer, the handsomest man on the planet.
Thank you, sir.
Kyle Lawrence. I'm a partner with Falcon, Rappaport, and Berkman. I'm a senior partner in the corporate and securities group. I have 18 years of experience with all things capital raising and corporate structuring and all that good stuff. I also co-chair my firm's digital assets practice group. I am an expert in all things blockchain, and in fact, I co-host a podcast called Block and Order. We are recording tonight. We do not have this fancy studio. I'm very envious. I'm taking pictures of it to take notes. And
Now Greg
it's
is
all up there.
intrigued. Before, Greg had head down, ready to go to sleep. He heard blockchain. He's awake.
I think I mentioned it before.
I didn't know you were into that. I don't understand the blockchain for shit.
Nobody does. That's what makes it a beautiful thing for us.
I guess it makes sense.
Yeah.
But so on the law side, what are you doing with blockchain right now?
So we help companies that utilize blockchain technology in furtherance of their business, and we treat them like the real companies that they are. When I first got started in that space, it was about 3 years ago, and people were under the impression that, well, this is not regulated. I can do anything I want. I can raise money, I can sell pictures of cats, and I can take millions of dollars and pay no taxes and run away and abscond into the ether and do all these things.
Was part of that true?
No, that was never true. It's never true for anybody trying to raise money anywhere on the planet.
Got it.
And so we, dissuaded them of that notion and said, look, you need to have a real business. You need to have real functioning agreements. You need to pay taxes. You need to do all these things.
Did you get involved heavily in what was that thing that like Gary Vee and everyone was doing for yeah, were you big into the NFT space?
Yeah.
No shit.
We represented a lot of, and still do, a lot of NFT issuers, some that were very prominent on OpenSea. Now that market has dried up, a little bit, and I own a probably irresponsible number of NFTs, but I still have them.
Do you have what are those monkeys? The monkey?
The Bored Apes.
Do you have a Bored Ape?
No, my partner Moish does. I do not. I have another Deeds, which is one of their side projects, and I have a Deadfellows, which did pretty well for a while. I have some
Illuminati.
I have a bunch that have done okay.
Where are the Bored Apes these days?
What's their price these
down,
days?
Down.
You know what? I don't know what their floor price is right now, but you could probably buy one off the floor for $45,000, $50,000.
Those things were going for like $200,000 at one point.
More than that. There was a time when the floor price was over $500,000. The cheapest one you could buy was $500,000.
Is the network of people that own those still the same though? They're like, can I hang out with Justin Bieber? Is it all the same type of thing, or is it now lost its luster?
They did something that a lot of other of the companies didn't do, which is they established a brand. They have, you can use a Bored Ape and do other things with it. You can get invited to shows. You get access to things. You can have access to other assets that you can buy on the blockchain. Most of them, you can't do that, but they were wise to create themselves like a Nike or a Pepsi, Bored Apes. Are they going to get that far? Who knows? But Yuga Labs, who owns them, they've done some really great things. They're very well funded. They're set up legally in a correct manner. They have some, an offshore-onshore structure. They are the gold standard of how all of these projects should be run.
Let's talk about this a little bit more, because
this
is interesting.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, I don't know shit about it, so just Dump it on me.
Just vamp away.
So what's that whole offshore onshore structure?
Sure. So as you know, in the United States, there's no true regulatory framework for a lot of these cryptocurrencies. The SEC has been operating by what's called enforcement actions. There's no laws that say this is how these assets are governed, so we're just going to use the existing securities laws, which are nearly 100 years old, to govern these assets. So when people see that and they're like, well, we don't want to be governed by the US laws, we're going to move our project offshore, they try to do that to avoid the regulatory scrutiny of the SEC. Doesn't always work. It's not always that easy. There is an international component to it. If you, for example, if you were raising money or had a company that was based here on Long Island and you were raising money from people on Long Island and you were investing in Long Island assets, you can't just set up a fund in the BVI and say, well, I'm not subject to US taxes and US regulations. It doesn't work that way. But if you have a vast international presence and you have people who are involved who are overseas, you at least have the opportunity to do that.
What about if it's just national?
If it's only in the US?
Then you still can't do it?
Not really, no.
Wow.
Yeah. You can't just say, I'm not from here. Like if you live here, but you're a Canadian citizen, if you live here long enough, the US will treat you as a US citizen.
So basically they're set up in the British Virgin Islands, and as a result, they're not subject to the same regulation. They don't pay the taxes.
Some of their operations is still based here. I think
Okay.
they have a Delaware presence as well, but some of their operations are based in the BVI.
Got it. And for the layman like myself, how does all this come together? Like, I come to you and I say, hey, I want to be the next Bored Ape. What do you, like, how do you get involved? What do you do? What's the process, et cetera?
Sure. So you would need a hook of some kind. You need to have cool art. You need to have something that people are going to gravitate towards.
Oh, you really know a lot about this shit, huh?
I mean, you know,
We're going in right now. I like this.
I know a good amount of it. It keeps me on my toes, for sure. So if you wanted to start an NFT project, which I would not advise that you do right now because the market is not very well, but if you wanted to do that, you would want to hire an artist to create the art. You could do it manually, you could do it generatively, which is using a computer technology, how most people do it. And you would need to create a community around it. That's how a lot of the NFT projects succeeded back in 21 and 22. They would go on Discord, they would create a Twitter account, and they would generate buzz. A lot of them did nothing. A couple of them caught fire. You have, you had Bored Apes. They had a sister project called Mutant Apes, which was really cool. Pudgy Penguins, Cool Cats. A bit Lazy Lions. There's a lot of these that did really, really well. Look at these.
No, I love it.
Out. Yeah.
I love it.
And if you have buzz, we were talking about baseball before. You talk about value. What makes these things valuable? What makes a baseball player valuable? He's valuable if somebody's willing to pay him what he wants.
Yes.
It's the same kind of concept. If you have an asset that people clamor for, I want a Bored Ape, it just drives the price up. If nobody's interested in it, drives the price down. So if you can generate that buzz and you can generate that kind of community interest and people are excited about it, you'll have something. You can make an easy couple $1 million. You could have, not anymore.
From the legal standpoint, is there anything special about it, or it's just you open up an entity, they raise money? How do they do it?
They raise money by doing what's called a mint. So what you do is you start the brand first. Handsome NFTs, right? You don't release them. Nobody owns them yet. But you say, we're going to release 10,000 NFTs on April 30th. That's our mint date. Come to our Discord, learn about what we're doing. We're going to give out prizes. We're going to do all these cool things. We're going to have in-person events in the city. It's going to be awesome. And then on April 30th, whoever is on the white list or the allow list can go onto your website and mint an NFT. You don't know what it looks like. It's blank. So you would pay the mint price. Everybody pays the same exact price.
Okay.
And then a week later or so, your NFT would be revealed to you. Now, some of them are garden variety. There's nothing special about them. But of the 10,000, 1,000 of them are going to have rarity features. Some of them may have a different hat. One may have an earring. They may have different color backgrounds. All these kinds of things, like old school games, like video games, you would have rarity treats.
Okay.
The rarer something is, the more valuable it is. And we talk about floor price for Bored Apes, and the cheapest one you could buy was $500,000. If you had a rare one that had a crazy background and an earring and a hat and this and that, millions of dollars you can sell those things for, at least back then.
At the time.
Yeah, at the time, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, come to think of it, I remember those things were everywhere. You would hear about it constantly.
Everywhere.
Everybody had it as their IG screensaver who owned
Yeah.
one. It was like,
Yeah. It was crazy. It was a gold rush in the truest sense of the word, because people were just flying into the space blind, cashing out their 401ks, spending money that they didn't have to buy these assets, thinking that they were just going to keep going up and up, and then boom, a lot of them crashed. Now,
I guess that's
a
like
mistake.
everything.
Yeah, like everything. So the NFTs are still around, but the NFT mania is past. Now we're in meme coin mania. It's all about meme coins. And those I'm not as bullish on, but you can make a lot of money really quickly.
do you think NFTs are like, those projects are dead? Do you think it's dead?
No, I mean, some of them are still around. I mean, Pudgy Penguins is one I mentioned before. They've been doing really well. I think they have a TV show coming out featuring the characters that are part of the NFT collection.
Yeah.
So what's really cool about that is if you own a Pudgy Penguin, you can it's yours. You own it. You can license that to the TV show, and the TV show will pay you royalties for it, which is awesome.
I just remember like certain big NFT enthusiasts, when NFTs were flying high, they were like, yo, NFTs are they're gonna drop, they're gonna crash. But then they're also saying like, I can't wait for them to crash, because then I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna buy all these NFTs dirt cheap.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be the defining moment of my career, because ultimately these things are gonna skyrocket, because a lot of them have, a certain inherent value, meaning you can meet a certain person, or you can get access to certain events, or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's as far as people doing that, I mean, you wouldn't need to buy a bunch of them. You could just buy one, and you would have that access. For example, if you own a Bored Ape, next week is NFT NYC. I don't know if Bored Apes is doing the same thing this, or if Yuga Labs, the company that owns Bored Apes, is doing the same thing they've done historically. Last year, was it last year or 2 years ago, during NFT NYC, they rented out Pier 17 at the South Street Seaport for free. If you owned a Bored Ape, a Mutant Ape, you and a guest could show up there for free, and Lil Wayne, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, there was some country act that was.
How much were they making off these freaking because
crazy.
every time they're sold, they get a piece.
That's exactly correct. Every time, so when it minted, which they wasn't a ton of money, it was
like
a couple $1 million, but
Yeah.
they made that. Every time an NFT is then sold on OpenSea, which is constant,
They get 10%,
They get a
right?
piece of it, yeah. And and so that, coupled with their branding and the merchandising that they sell, they're the one. That's why they're the gold standard. They are just dominating the space.
Wow.
Yeah.
Would you recommend somebody buys a Bored Ape today?
If you're interested in the space, I don't know if I would buy it, thinking that it's an investment that's going to moon over the course of your lifetime. But if you're interested in it and you want access to these things and you want to go to these meetups, so the Bored Apes Discord, I mean, I'm with my partner at all these conferences, and he's like, what's going on right now? Let's just look at the Bored Ape Discord. Oh, a bunch of these guys are getting together. Let's just go meet up with them. You have no idea who they are.
Yeah.
And it's just 5-6 random people who own Bored Apes, and they get together and they have drinks. If
But-
you're interested in that, then it's worth 50 grand.
Who are the people who own Bored Apes today? Is it a certain echelon of business person or financial level or whatever it is that you're like, I want to know these guys, I want to be around them?
Not so much. I mean, yeah, there's probably, Snoop Dogg has one. Is named Dr. Bombay, I think it's called, or something like that. And he made a cartoon with him, I believe. I don't know if Justin Bieber's, who knows, but Jimmy Fallon's another one who had one. But the people you're meeting up at the bars are just guys like us. It's not, yeah.
I'm just curious to know, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of like a club,
Yeah,
of sorts, right?
That's all it is.
People with common interests and most likely certain socioeconomic status. Because who's going to go and spend $50, $100, $200, $300,000 on a fucking
It sounds
digital
pretty
picture of an
silly
ape?
when you say it like that, yeah.
But I mean, listen, it's just a modern day version of country clubs or this or that. It's like certain people wanting to network, certain people wanting to have certain status. I was just curious to know, since you obviously seem to know everything about this,
I know
where
a
it
lot
was
about it,
today.
yeah.
Because at one point I'm like, should I buy a Bored Ape? And then I haven't heard the word Bored Ape,
Yeah.
the words Bored Ape, in at least a year.
Right. It's not as prevalent as it was a couple of years ago. I'm also sweating my ass off. It's warm in here. Now it's all meme coins. It's all meme coins. And meme coins, what they do, there's no real utility. Like Bored Apes has a utility. There's a thing you can get by virtue of owning it.
Yes.
Meme coins is not the case. There's no utility. For example, 2 weeks ago, I don't know if you saw this Portnoy coin, Dave Portnoy. Somebody put out a Portnoy coin, and In the first 6 hours that it was released, it went up 778,000%. So if you put in $10, you're good now. Like you're set. And if you cashed it out in that moment.
For life.
Right.
Wait, it went up how much?
778,000% in a matter of 6
Is that
hours.
even like a number?
It went, I mean, it was fractions of a penny to fewer fractions of a penny. Like that, but that's how much it went up. Then he tweeted about it, and all these people descended upon it and started buying it, and the price went up a tiny bit and then plummeted and crashed, and that was it. And in a matter of 12 hours, it came, it made a couple people rich, and that's it, and it's gone. And that's where the industry is at right now. And that's why it's like, I'm not a big believer in meme coins. Like if you could buy
What's
Dogecoin.
the point of a meme coin? Did Portnoy come out with the meme coin?
No, somebody else did.
Some random person.
Some random person did it. Yeah. And you see a lot of those. And now you're going to start seeing a lot more of them because AI is going to take over. AI can create them, release them.
What is a meme coin?
It's like Dogecoin or Shiba.
You know what that is?
Yeah, if you bought Dogecoin, you bought a meme coin.
I bought Shibu.
Shiba, same thing. Shiba came out as a joke almost to make fun of Bored Apes and things like that and Cool Cats. It's like, what are we doing? It's a dog coin. It literally does nothing but exist. And the hope is, if you bought Shiba or you bought Doge, you hoped that Elon Musk tweeted about it, and if he did, you could then cash out and make a couple $100,000. And people do that. You could still do that. But that you may as well just go to AC and you put it all on red.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But I do a lot of work in that space. I speak a lot about it all over the world. My podcast, that we talk about the legal vagaries associated with it. I find it really intellectually satisfying to learn about it. And it's really cool being at the forefront of the industry. You know, when my partners and I formed the Digital Assets Group in 2021, there's not a lot of law firms doing it. And the ones that were charging $1,500-$1,600 an hour. We're half that. And we also love it. And we're degens. Like we ape into this stuff. And like, yeah, I mean, back in the day, I was like, yeah, it's only like 15 grand. I could piss that money away. Like that sounds great. And we did a lot of that stuff. And I don't know. I love it. I love things that are intellectually satisfying. Like I can work on an operating agreement. I've done 10,000 of them in my career, but it's the same after a while, you know? I like doing new things.
So what's the overall majority of your business? Is it fundraising?
It depends on the time of year. Right now, historically, it has been fundraising, although right now we have a ton of deal flow. Unusual for this time of year.
So when you say deal flow, you mean businesses buying and selling?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Businesses buying and selling historically has been concentrated in the fourth quarter or the second half of the year generally, but generally fourth quarter because companies need to get things on and off their books. Financing commitments expire for tax reasons, all that kind of stuff. And then usually once New Year's hits, that dies. That has not been the case this year. We're cooking with gas on the M&A front. I don't know why.
What are the types of companies that are trading? Is it everything? Is this smaller businesses due to baby boomers getting to a certain age and wanting to cash out? What is it?
I have a theory. I don't know how correct this is, but as you may or may not know, we're in an election year. I'm not kicking the hornet's nest, don't worry, but we're in an election year. And during election years, people go a little batty in various ways. And what I think is that once the election cycle really heats up starting in the summertime, a lot of the deal flow is going to dry up because no one knows what's going to happen. And when nobody knows what's going to happen, they're much less likely to spend them a lot of money. People will want to sell, but the buying is going to be slowed down a little bit. That's just a theory. I don't know if it's true.
That's interesting. I mean, is that the feedback you're getting from clients?
Not at all.
What kind of businesses do you see trading right now? Is it smaller stuff? Is it bigger stuff? Is it everything? Is it all asset classes?
More of the smaller stuff, only because with interest rates where they are, borrowing is more expensive than it has been. So you're not going to see the significant 9-figure transactions. I mean, we just did one recently, but those are fewer and farther between. You're generally in what's considered middle market, 20 to 50 million purchase price.
Oh, I mean, that's still like...
It's not nothing, yeah.
What kind of businesses do you see trading, though? I'm just curious.
All kinds. I just did a very prominent land surveying business. I can't say the name of it on the air, but I can tell you about it afterwards. A lot of construction companies. We represent, as a firm, a lot of HVAC companies.
I have private equity is
Well,
gobbling those things
That's
up.
what I was about to say. Private equity is scooping all that stuff up. Private equity loves them. They love, you know what private equity loves, dude?
Car washes.
Car washes. That's
Car
exactly
washes.
right. They love car washes. You put them on a subscription model,
Yep.
and they can make all the supplies cheaper, and they can fix up the water reclamator, and
Yeah,
boom.
they want
yeah.
consistent cash flow.
Yeah.
That's what they want. Car washes are really big. What else are they buying? Like
There was one other one someone was telling me. I think they're starting. So
laundromats,
laundromats.
like big laundromats.
So funny story about the laundromats. I did a laundromat deal a couple years ago, and one of the partners who told me, he goes, all right, what they're going to do is you have your stated purchase price, but then they're going to hand them a bag of cash. And when that happens, you have to go to the bathroom. Like, you can't see that happen. Like, they're not reporting part of the transaction. I was like, he's just messing with me. That's not real. And sure enough, we were in Chinatown when we did the deal. And the attorney comes in. He's like, come with me. I'm like, what's up? And he's like, you have to go to the bathroom. And I was like, no, I don't.
But
he
this
goes,
is real.
Yes, you do. And I was like, all right. and that's what happened. He totally handed him a bag of cash.
Out of curiosity, you obviously don't say the name because you
Yeah.
don't have to say the name. But what is, because 20 to 50 million bucks is like, that's a lot of money. That's like
it's more than I have on me.
it's a
for
serious
sure. Yeah.
chunk of change.
Yeah,
Probably more than all of us together have on us, right?
I would imagine so.
What business were you surprised when you saw the sale price or the purchase price? Were you surprised? Like what type of, like what industry? Be like, holy shit, I can't believe that this thing is selling for 50 million.
Great
bucks.
question. Any restaurants. Any
don't
restaurant.
fucking get it, man.
I can't. It makes no sense to me how. And I've worked with restaurants. And
The whole
food and
business
beverage.
makes no sense to me.
The whole business makes no sense, especially in the city, just because rent is so high. Your margins are so razor thin. Unless you're walking it, same with the franchises. I get these calls and it's like, I want to open a Dunkin' Donuts franchise. It's like, no, you don't want to open one. You want to open 10.
That's
If you
it.
And if you can't open 10, don't.
Yep.
Same concept. If you're a restaurant group, you're Danny Meyer, you're Tom Colicchio, you're one of these people, great. If it's you or me and you're like, you know what, I really love pizza. Let's open a pizza place.
No.
You take us out back and shoot us. That's a terrible idea. So,
Yeah, that's one of these things that people like always want. People always asking me, "Hey, you want to get into the restaurant business?" I was like, I would never. Like, first of all, the margins are, like you said, super razor thin.
Yeah.
And I always say to these business brokers because I know a bunch of them, and I'm like, hey, like, why are people buying these things? Like, they're making anywhere from 5 to maybe 15% of gross. That's their gross margin.
crazy.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And like, oh, well, they make up with it in volume. I was like, what does that mean?
Make
So what
up-
if they're losing?
Yeah.
They're also losing in volume. It doesn't make sense.
When I was a first year, I can't believe you just said that. When I was a first year associate, I had a client and they were crazy. They made energy drinks and they were doing a deal with Walgreens.
Okay.
And we were looking at the proposal and we were like, you know that you're going to lose money. Your cost is more than the sale price. And he goes, yeah, we'll make it up in volume. And I didn't. And I just looked at him. I just didn't. I was like, oh okay. I don't know. What do you even say to
Did
that?
the deal
It's so
go through?
insane. It went through, and they went out of business because they were losing money. It's insane. I'm not a mathematician. I'm not an accountant.
Wow.
But have you ever worked in a restaurant?
I worked in a male strip club that served food. That's the
Around-
closest I
around-
ever got.
Was it Escapes in Merritt?
Yeah.
Was it really?
Swear to God,
Get
dead
out of-
ass.
How did I know that?
Because it's the only one. How did you know that?
Because I'm from Merrick, and that's the only one that I
Wow.
knew.
How
of.
old are you?
I'll be 45 next week.
We're the same age. That's
Yeah.
right. I actually, that's so funny. I went to the
That's
ramen
amazing.
place last weekend.
That's incredible.
And I parked in that parking lot. Now it's a supermarket, and I'm like,
Yeah. That's where my gym is.
20 years ago.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, now it's like a Stop and Shop or some shit.
It's a Stop and Shop and a CVS.
I'm like, this place was that big that it's a fucking Stop and Shop now?
Is that unbelievable?
That was a wild time. I worked there for a year. That was wild. It didn't live up to the hype. Not
No.
as good as you think it would be.
I don't know what I would think. I mean, I've been to my share of adult establishments, and they're not always the most reputable and they're not always the cleanest. And I don't think they're as great a business model as we'd like to think.
I would get like the flu at least once a month. It was the dirtiest place on planet Earth. My mother was like,
Yeah.
"You're sick all the time. The place is filthy." In
Did
her
she
Jewish
know
accent.
what it was?
Of course. I was 19. What am I going to do? Like, how am I going to hide it from her?
Right. Yeah.
And the way I got it was so interesting because I worked at a 7-Eleven at the time, and the guy that owned it lived down the block. He would drive up in his Hummer, and he had this big pit bull whose head was sticking out the window. And he would buy a Slurpee like every day. And then one day he walked in, he goes, "Hey, you want to work at my club?" I'm like, "What is it?" It's a male strip club. And I'm like, "Of course I have to work at a male
How
strip
can
club.
I say no to that?
Who the hell gets the opportunity to work at a male strip club?"
Right.
So I did it for a year, and it was not all it was cracked up to be. But I'm very excited that I did it because who the hell can say that they had that experience?
I've never done it. I'm kind of jealous. To be
Life
honest with you.
Yeah, like you would think, oh, you go in there, you get a ton of action. I mean, I guess certain guys did, but I just got in a lot of trouble because girls would come in there and they would say they didn't have boyfriends, and then they'd invite you out to meet them later, and then you'd show up. Me and my buddies would show up, and everyone has a boyfriend.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, people get into bar fights, and it's a freaking mess. But yeah, it was interesting.
Are bar fights still a thing? I mean, you're from like.
Are
from what
bar
I understand,
fights still
like,
a thing now?
Like Farmingdale, I know.
Bars
like
aren't even a thing anymore,
Yeah,
dude.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
The next generation
Just
doesn't
showed my
go.
age. Yeah.
Bars are absolutely still a thing. And bar fights are absolutely still a thing.
It's not the same.
I don't know. I just watched Roadhouse, and I think I just have bar fights.
The new Roadhouse is not the same. But
No.
the nightlife scene is definitely, in my opinion, not the same. I think you see it too.
Yeah,
Can we
it's
agree
true.
on that?
Absolutely not.
There's no way it's still the same. Bro, you guys don't even have any clubs. You have nothing.
We do. We've had this conversation.
What clubs do you guys have on Long Island right now?
Yeah, I don't go to
Sprats.
Brett's is gone.
I know it's been gone for years.
on the podcast who named a bunch of
Yes,
companies
and
working for
and he said they would. He said it's mostly in the city. Breeze, you know Breeze.
No,
They
I'm
just.
not cool anymore.
Where did you used to go back in the day? All
used
the
to-
Island Park places, all out of business.
Those are all out of business. And we used to go out in the city more. You know, go to Tunnel,
Yeah.
Limelight.
No,
all those
city,
things. Yeah.
city still
got-
there,
yeah.
definitely. Long Island, not the same.
What was the one?
Mulcahy's is a concert hall now. There's
we used
no
to go
more
there-
out of the
We
weeds.
used to go there for happy hour. Mulcahy's. It was a great happy hour when I was in law school. And they have multiple bars.
What, Mulcahy's? Yeah, no, Mulcahy's. They have, but they do a lot of concerts now. They turn it into like a concert hall. It used to, when I went there back in the day, they didn't do concerts. It was just like a drunken shit show.
Maybe we should get into a bar fight. You look diesel.
No. I bruise easily. This is all show and no go. Trust me. Yeah, not even so much diesel, just losing weight.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about the fund because we did that together and that was awesome.
We did.
And then I think you did something for Brian Karp also, didn't you?
We spoke a couple times. He went a different direction, but I spoke to him. He's a great guy. I liked what he was doing, and I think he
Nice.
has a good. I think he had a good idea of what he wanted to do, which is key for anybody who's doing what you're doing.
So the fund model, very cool. And you make it very simple because it seems like it could be very overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it's not. With the right people, it's not. So just so everybody knows, so we recently launched a fund. Essentially what a fund is, you know what, I'm going to let you explain what a fund is because you're going to explain it a whole lot better than I am.
I don't know. You were doing pretty well. It can certainly be a very daunting experience if you've never been down through the process. But basically, what Charles and his partners are doing are they're raising money from accredited investors to invest in one or more parcels of real property that are going to generate a return on the investor's investment. That's the simplest way to describe it. Now, of course, there are a litany of compliance issues that you need to adhere to in order to do that legally. We're talking about before about BVI and things like that. Same with here. When you offer somebody a path to receive a return on their investment, you have engaged in a securities offering, which is a good thing. People say, I don't want to be a securities offering. I don't want to do it this way. I don't want to do that. That's the best thing you can do because the federal government has said, this is what you need to do in order to be compliant. And if you're compliant, you're A-okay. We will leave you alone. And that's what we did. We prepared the paperwork for you. We prepared the operating agreement amongst everybody and the subscription agreement amongst the investors in the company. Easy peasy. And I think you're all set, actually.
No, we're up. We're raising money. We're good to go.
I love it.
We're moving.
It's perfect, yeah.
So just to like get into the fund a little bit more so people understand, right? Why we did the fund and why people do funds. And there's all different kinds of funds.
Yep.
Right? The cool thing is it seems like kind of the sky's the limit. If you can dream it up, you can figure out a way to make it legally happen.
That's it.
Right? So essentially it is a pool of money where we have a debt fund. So essentially what that means is the fund has a specific term. Ours is 10 years. It's a certain amount. Ours is $10 million. You start raising money. You have different returns. We did it based on commitment levels, meaning how many years you're going to commit, but you can come up with whatever structure you want.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You can either offer debt, you can offer equity, which is an ownership piece in the fund itself. You can offer combinations of those things. A lot of people do what's called convertible debt, which is a little more complicated, but that's where I give you money and you owe me interest payments or a return on my capital, but at any given time I can convert into equity. That's a little bit more complicated, but it's certainly an option. But that's basically right. If you have an idea and you know what you're doing, that's a key distinction, which we could probably get into in a few minutes. You can structure these things any way you want. The federal government and the federal securities laws give you the roadmap to create these things. And so many people have done it in the 100 years since those laws were passed, where if you came to me and said, I want to do this really unique strategy and I want to be in all these different states and doing all these things, it's easy enough to look at what somebody else has done and simply replicate it from a legal standpoint.
Yeah. So just some different types of funds. You could do a debt fund like we did, which basically means you're taking your people are investing and you're just paying them every month or every quarter a fixed rate of return. You can have equity. So basically someone's coming in, they're getting a preferred return, and they're getting a piece of the upside if you're buying apartment buildings and things like that. The sky is basically the limit. If you can dream it up, you can do it. Let's talk about, because I think a lot of people, let's kind of get into the fund structure, the laws that govern it, the different types of funds, because I think that's what people are really interested in.
Okay.
So take the wheel on that. So essentially there's two main types of funds. You do this. You're definitely better at it than me.
Well, I think there's a lot more than two different types of funds. I think what you're saying is, how do you set them up in a manner that's compliant?
Yes.
Right. So what you want to do is, when you're taking money from investors, you want to present them with all of the information that a reasonably prudent person would need in order to make the determination as to whether or not to invest or not. So what does that mean? If we're renting or if we're buying a parcel of real property, but we're buying it from my brother-in-law, that's something that I should disclose to you so you would know it. Because if I don't tell you that and we get a favorable price and you turn around and say, well, I gave you money and I didn't know that. If I had known that, I probably wouldn't have invested. Well, you've just committed a foul on the federal securities laws. You don't want to do that. You want to present all of the information that you can possibly think of and present it to these investors. Because the reality is, nobody reads those documents. The document we prepared for you, no one read that thing except for you and except for me and my associates. The only time people read those things are when something goes wrong. The investment goes sideways for one reason or another. Everybody's going to look at that document and say, you didn't tell me it was risky. You didn't tell me that real estate was a speculative investment. You didn't tell me that the moon could crash into the earth. How was I supposed to know such a thing? And as long as you tell them that, no matter what you do, you will legally be in the clear. That's the sort of crux of how the federal securities laws work.
So explain to people, when you're raising money, what an accredited investor is, why is that important, and the different type of fund options that are available to you in regards to accredited and non-accredited investors, and how you can raise money.
So an accredited investor is, simply put, somebody who is familiar with the investment process. They are sophisticated, although sophistication is a separate thing, but for all intents and purposes, they're sophisticated. I know what I'm doing. I have the financial wherewithal to withstand a loss of my investment if it comes to that. Specifically speaking, accredited investors is largely going to fall into one of three categories. I make $200,000 a year. I make $300,000 a year together with my spouse, or I have $1 million in net assets excluding the value of my primary residence. That's 99% of all accredited investors are going to fall into those buckets. It looked like you were going to ask a question.
Are they planning on raising that? Because when you think about it, I guess it depends on where you are, right? But two people together, $150,000 each, $300,000.
It's not a lot these days.
Not a lot these days.
That's been the threshold since I started practice in 2006. They have not raised it. And it's one of those things I've always looked at and be like, they should probably raise that. Just like the biennial statement charge in New York State. If you have an entity, you have to file a report every other year, not even every year. It's $9. That's the cheapest in the country, which you would think New York it would be the opposite, and it would be every year, but it's not. $9 every other year, is it?
They get you for all kinds of other stuff to balance
They make up for it on the back end for sure. But so basically, when you raise money, certain funds you're only allowed to sell to accredited investors. For example, if you do what's called a 506C offering, which allows you to publicly solicit investments, either on radio shows, on a podcast, taking out Facebook ads or meta ads or whatever you want to call it. From there, you can only sell to accredited investors. Hard stop. If you don't do that, if you're not marketing the investment vehicle to publicly, you're only selling to people that you know through friends of friends, you hire a placement agent, whatever it may be, you can sell to accredited investors as many as you want, or up to 35 non-accredited investors. So people who don't make those thresholds. The downside of that is, and forgive me for saying so, when you sell to non-accredited investors, they're the ones who tend to be a little more squirrely about their investment. It's not the guy who gives you the $1 million check. That guy can afford to lose that money for the most part. It's somebody who writes you a $10,000 check. That's a lot of money to people who are not accredited. And they're the ones who are going to say, Charles, what's going on? Charles, hey, Charles, where's my money? Hey, Charles, did you sell that property? It's that constant thing. Not everybody, but that's generally how it is. So I tend to advise people to be very, very careful with that. You don't want to exclude people. You want to bring in your cousin, you want to bring in your neighbor, fine. Just be wary of the pitfall of that.
So how does one go about vetting somebody to see if they are in fact accredited?
It's a self-accreditation process, which sounds crazy, but you've heard of KYC, obviously. Know your customer rules. When it comes to the federal securities laws, you don't have to KYC your investors. Basically, if I'm an investor in your fund, I just fill out the questionnaire and check the box or boxes that make me an accredited investor. If you're doing the public solicitation of investors pursuant to 506C, there's one extra step, which is, yes, I fill out the questionnaire and I check the box, but I have to get my accountant, lawyer, or financial advisor to fill out an accreditation letter just certifying that I am in fact accredited. And that's it. You don't have to provide bank statements. You can do that, but you don't have to, and I don't really know anybody who does.
So what are the different types of funds that you see that you've set up in the last, it's like almost 20 years, right?
It's been 20 years. Yeah, we're dinosaurs, man. I don't know how that happened.
Fuck.
I woke up an old man. It's largely on the equity side. I predominantly see what are called 506B offerings, which are just, we're raising capital, we're selling to accredited and some non-accredited investors. It's largely an open-ended fund. Those are the lion's share of what I do. We do some other ones where we do a lot of convertible note offerings. Those are more for startups in the tech space, which are largely different from what you're doing, obviously. And those are a different animal because those you really have more of a spec type of company. We don't have a proof of concept. We need $500,000 just to get our wherewithal together and figure out what we're doing. So we get that first 500 grand in. It's either through a safe, which is a simple agreement for future equity, or a convertible note, which can convert into equity later on down the road.
Have you seen any of these? Have you been a part of any of these that just really took off?
Yeah, I've been through, actually on the real estate side, another client of mine who's predominantly based in Fire Island, I mean, he's been killing it. His funds have been doing really, really well.
He's buying rental properties? What is he buying?
He's buying rental properties. Yeah, he's buying rental properties, vacation homes, and he's doing some of the fix and flip.
Anything in the tech space take off?
Some have. Some have. A lot of them haven't. In the tech space, it's actually largely on the blockchain side. It's companies that are using blockchain tech to advance, or just to further their own business goals. Because blockchain offers a unique opportunity to track ownership of things.
Yeah.
If we want to take it back to that. So actually, if we could pivot a little bit to something real estate and blockchain, if we can. Have you ever heard about title people being pissed off at the advent of blockchain and how they don't want blockchain involved?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which it makes total sense why blockchain should be involved.
Yeah. But that's a great example of what blockchain can do, because if I buy a house, I don't want to spend thousands of dollars on title insurance for someone to tell me that what I'm buying is what I'm buying. And I don't want to tip the guy, who sits at the table and doesn't do anything. It's a pain in the ass. The blockchain shows me exactly who owns what. I know exactly the chain of title that it took. I know exactly who owns it and exactly what they paid for it. Same concept here. People can use that technology to track their own cap tables, to track ownership of products. You're seeing that in the insurance space for cargo manifests. Like, look at these antiquated systems that companies are using with faxing, like seriously, it's 2024. Who the hell is using this crap? We have a technology here that can show exactly where everything on the planet is, who's holding it, what it costs at our fingertips. And you can instantly tell if it's real or not. It's baffling to me that people aren't embracing this. But anyway, sorry, that was a tangent. The people who are using the blockchain technology, they're the ones who are really taking off because they're at the forefront. They're at the cusp of the future of how business is going to be done.
Jesus. Yeah, it's interesting because I haven't really thought about it so much until this podcast, because there was a time where I was like, NFTs, blockchain, this is the future. And then it just seemed to kind of die. And die, but I guess it wasn't hot because AI, all of a sudden now it's like AI. Everyone's talking about AI.
Yeah.
But it sounds like this stuff is happening.
It is.
Like it or not, it's coming.
Well, people conflate two different things, blockchain and cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency exists on the blockchain, but they're two very different things. Blockchain is the underlying technology. You're not hearing about it anymore because 3 years ago it was NFTs. People are making millions of dollars. That died. The bear market came. Bitcoin went from 70,000 down to 13,000. Ethereum went from 4,500 down to like $900 for a day. So when that happened, you stopped hearing a lot about it. So when you say blockchain, people automatically go, huh, what? 8 pictures. It's two different things. That's why. Yeah.
We should start a meme coin that looks like that cow.
You can start one in a matter of minutes.
What's that cow called?
A Highland cow.
Highland cow. You know what I'm talking about?
No,
this
but you
goddamn
should do
cow
that.
is everywhere.
The Highland cow.
Highland cow. All of a sudden, Greg, being the trendsetter that he is, has a picture of a Highland cow on his computer. All of a sudden, I see my nephew like 2 weeks later. He's got a sweatshirt with a Highland cow on it. I walk into an apartment. There's a Highland cow on the wall. I don't know what happened, but this cow is all of a sudden everywhere.
I'm glad you're mentioning this, and I have to ask, what is a Stanley Cup?
This is a Stanley Cup.
What is?
Truth is, I didn't know what this thing was when I bought it. I just needed a serious cup, and it was on sale at Target.
But it's a. I mean, I have a Yeti, but what's the difference?
It's the same shit. It's just that, like,
But why did they take off?
You wanna
And
take
how are
this?
they called Stanley Cup?
So there was like this video that went viral. This girl whose car
oh yeah,
got lit on fire. Basically, something happened. Car went up in flames, completely destroyed. Car is, total gone. The Stanley Cup that was inside, fine.
and the water was cold. So I actually read an article
water
about
was
this now that I remember it. So this company's been around for like 100 years, and basically what they did was they would make not these type cups, but cups like this for just construction workers.
Makes sense.
And they were doing like $70 million, $100 million a year, like big ass company. And these like two women that were influencers or something ended up coming to them and saying, sell us 5,000 of these cups, but you have to make them in like the colors that we want,
Right.
and you have to like make them in this thing. They blew these things out in 2 minutes, and all of a sudden this became like what is it? What can I say? Like white girl cup? Like what's
Internet's baby.
I don't know. This is like, yeah.
I all of a sudden I started hearing, and I was like, you say Stanley Cup, I think a hockey thing. I don't understand.
No, and you know what? It's not even really that great. It doesn't keep shit that cold. I don't know if that video is legit, but yes, I saw it everywhere.
So, I'm not sure, but the cup was actually in the car. There were like cinch marks on it, but it was
Yes.
gone everywhere.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
I don't know if they planted it or whatever, but what the smart thing they did is Stanley went and bought the lady a new car. So on top of all
So
that,
she lived,
then they,
okay,
then,
sorry.
then they, yes, she lived.
She was fine.
But yes, so basically this is like, oh no, basic white girl. There we go. This is
All
the
right.
basic white girl cup.
I
And
learned
apparently
something
am
today.
a basic
Okay.
white girl.
All right, thank you. Now I know.
Stick with the Yeti.
Yeah,
You're
all
better
right.
off. This thing leaks. Like it's got the straw, no holder, so it's a little bit annoying.
They make them with lead.
They make it with what?
Lead.
Oh, there's
Oh,
there's a lead thing under here. I don't think it gets into the water though, does it?
They said that if it breaks open, that it will.
That only happened like a couple of times. Come on.
I don't think yours has lead. Stick with the Yeti.
Yeah, it's fine. The Yeti, it's gotten me this far in life, and my car's never caught on fire. So
So, in conclusion, because we've been going on for an hour, believe it or not.
really,
Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
time flies when you're having fun, man.
you do a podcast. You know this.
I do.
It just
It's true.
goes.
Ours is short too. Yeah.
People get nervous about the podcast. Like, what am I going to talk about? And all of a sudden, they get on the podcast, they start rambling on, and then all of a sudden, it's an hour later. Like, holy shit, it's been an hour.
I have a tendency to ramble. Yeah.
We all do.
I know.
That's what we do. We
Yeah.
talk. We're salespeople.
I get paid to talk too. So the longer I talk, the more money I make.
So I had you on because it's a couple things. You and I have been friendly for like 7 years. We were introduced by Ben,
Yes.
our friend Ben. And sometimes like we were about to do stuff, it never happened, and now we finally did, and it went smashingly well.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna obviously open up lots more funds and do lots more things. And you're my guy.
Thanks, man. The next conversation is we got to trademark Handsome Homebuyer.
I love it. I'm into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. So if anybody's interested in buying a business, selling a business, starting a fund, how do they get in touch with you guys?
You can reach me. I'm at Falcon, Rappaport, and Berkman. We have offices in Rockville Center and Manhattan, Newport Beach, California, Fort Lauderdale, and another one on the way in White Plains. You can call me at 516-599-0888. I'm always around, and I love people who are energetic about what they do. I love teaching people and helping them with their businesses. I'm not I don't have an MBA, but I know enough about business. I'm not an accountant, but I know enough about accounting to be dangerous. And I love people who have a good idea, who are passionate about it, and helping them. I'm not a guy who kills people on fees. I really just love helping people get from point A to point B. So please reach out.
That's a wrap.